Welcome, everyone. It's William Henry. Title of my presentation today, Remember Lot's Wife. And actually, this presentation sort of creeped up on me. It came to me at the end of a presentation that I just gave at the Gaia Sphere in Boulder for Gaia. I was part of the Ancient Civilizations Conference, and my presentation was called Ignition, the lost secret of the Star Walkers. It was essentially about the Robe of Light, which is a subject that I've been speaking about a lot lately. And it brought me to a place that really surprised me at the end. And I wanted to share that with you. And the best way for me to be able to do that is to give maybe like a 15-minute preview highlights, really, of my Gaia talk so that we can walk up to this precipice of where this phrase, this mysterious phrase, remember Lot's wife, comes into the picture. So let's dive in, spend 15 minutes or so skipping over my presentation and setting up this really mysterious statement once again that I think will really surprise everyone that's paying attention here. So talking about ancient civilizations, by now we know that all ancient civilizations left us two histories. They left us a history of what happened, and they left us a history of what can be, what we can become. And we spent centuries figuring out what happened. I mean, go back as far as you want, really, but we all started the human timeline. Homo sapien enters the picture around 300,000 years ago. 200,000 years ago, there's a sudden and mysterious explosion in our cognitive abilities. It's as if our neocortex suddenly gets switched on. We essentially have the ability to read each other's minds. We have social skills. We start developing the capacity for creating tools and technology. 40,000 years ago, the first piece of art. 35,000 years ago, the first piece of woven fabric. 15,000 years ago, Göbekli Tepe is created. Then we have a cataclysm. Major cataclysm, civilization just literally falls off a cliff, and that's 10,000 BC, and we spend the next 7,000 years trying to recover from that event. We invent writing 5,000 years ago, and we start writing down the history of what happened. Of course, ancient civilizations had previously written what happened in stone, megalithic monuments. This is what happened. They look up in the sky, and here's what happened, right? Rock art goes back to very ancient times as well. And so only the past 5,000 years have we been writing down history of what happened. And running parallel to that, as I said, is a history of what we can be, what we can become. Past centuries have been devoted to understanding, exploring what happened. The 21st century belongs to us, those who seek and discover what we can be. And that was one of the through lines of my presentation on the Star Walkers and all the Star Walker work that I'm doing and we're doing together. It's based on the premise that there's a golden thread that is weaving its way through all of these ancient civilizations. And I'm picking up that golden thread and weaving our way through those civilizations. And as I was reflecting on my Gaia talk that I just gave, this is now August 6th, 2026, that was the 1st of August, I was reflecting on past talks that I had done at Gaia and also past Star Walker material. And I decided I really just wanted to do a quick deep dive on this golden thread that I use as my logo on my website and also as a thought sort of process. This golden thread is composed of 3 chords and the truth. That's a Nashville thing. If you have 3 chords and the truth in Nashville, you got a hit song. And indeed, my golden thread is composed of 3 chords. It's the first chord is something happened a long time ago that caused us to enter into this timeline, and we're going somewhere. The second thread is that we're not alone on this journey. There are advanced intelligences, avatar intelligence, angelic intelligence, maybe even artificial intelligences that are involved in our journey. The third chord is that tools and technologies have been a part of the human experience since the very beginning. In fact, our development of tools and technologies is what defines us as human beings. When that neocortex was fired up, suddenly we have the ability to do art, music, science, engineering, building architectural forms and constructions. Everything we think of as civilization is the product of our neocortex, yet there's this immense mystery about exactly how it came online. Was it cooking meat, as some say? Was it cosmic rays from Cygnus, as Dr. Carl Sagan said? Was it group sex? Was it extraterrestrials? Was it psychedelic substances? I like to think, well, what if it's possible that it was extraterrestrials who came down, we cooked meat together, we had group sex, and we ate some mushrooms? What if it's all of the above? The point is, we don't know how this capacity that makes us human actually ultimately manifested. And that is such an important point because it asks us to ask some really powerful questions. If the neocortex is responsible for the tools and technologies in our world, all of them, then what is the most powerful tool that humanity has ever created? I like to say that the Starwalkers turn that on its head a little bit and ask the question differently. The Starwalkers ask, what if the most powerful technology known to man, known to humanity, is not artificial? And in asking that question, I remind myself of conversations I had with my dearly departed friend, Nick Pope. You probably know Nick. He ran the Ministry of Defense UFO desk for the UK government for decades. He came to America. He became the Fox Mulder of ufology. He was one of my Ancient Aliens bandmates. We became very close friends when we were out on the road. And often someone would ask Nick, hey, Nick, if you could ask an alien one question, what would it be? Nick, being British, would say, what is the smartest question I could ask you? And then he'd say something like, oh, that's just a, Ministry of Defense ninja mind trick. And the idea is it's meant to focus the question. What is really important here? What is really important about this technology question? What is the most powerful technology known to humanity? And turning it on its head, the Jedi mind trick, we're asking, well, what if the most powerful technology is not artificial, but rather it is you? It's you. It's not your body, not your brain, not your heart, but what the ancients called the soul. And whether you think of that soul as a ray or a drop or a spark, according to these ancient civilizations, this soul had the ability to manifest this physical flesh and blood body as a vehicle for incarnation on this plane or layer of creation. And also that the soul wears a robe or a cloak, a garment of the soul. They called it the miracle garment, the ancients did, because they believed it could perform miracles. Those who possessed it had the ability to heal the sick, raise the dead, manipulate the physics of this layer of creation. And because of that, this robe of the soul was considered the most powerful technology known to humanity, and it's even more powerful than artificial intelligence. So in my Robe of the Soul talk, I always go back to the defining moment when I first stepped on this trail to investigate this robe. It was back in the 1990s. And it was this image right here. It's from the 13th century. It's from the Winchester Bible in England. It's a fairly traditional image of John the Baptist baptizing Jesus in the River Jordan. What's kind of unusual is John's got this sort of feathered cloak on. It looks like a very shamanic garment that he's wearing. And there's an angel that is standing beside Jesus holding a cloak or a garment. And I'll always remember the moment I first saw that, I was like completely locked on to the mystery of this cloak. What is it? And what are those golden threads, the golden edges that we see on the cloak? And so, why is that angel even there? Turns out that in art, the golden threads mean that the figure that is wearing it is radiant, glowing, or luminous. And at the top of the painting in the Winchester Bible, we see Jesus as this luminous figure in the Transfiguration. He's morphing into light. And beside him, John the Baptist. In the New Testament, it says that it was Elijah that manifested beside him, along with Moses and John the Baptist. So there's a kind of a mystery here about what this English artist is trying to convey in this image. But it's very clear that both Magdalene and John the Baptist, as well as Jesus, picked up the golden thread of this luminous or radiant garment that represents the transfiguration or our metamorphosis. And as I was tracking this image, I began to research ancient Sumerian mythology, and I got fixated on the images of the Anunnaki, especially this image here of Inanna, an Anunnaki priestess. She's also known as Ishtar or Mari. 2,500 years before Mary Magdalene, this Anunnaki priestess was modeling a robe or a garment. It was one of 7 may or divine or power objects that she had accumulated in her journey. Inanna, famously in the descent of Inanna to the underworld, had started on one plane, descended to the underworld of her sister Ereshkigal, and then was crucified on a nail for 3 days, and then ascended from that underworld. Along her journey, she acquired these 7 may, or power objects. The word may is spelled M-E, but it's pronounced may. May, divine power objects. Her objects include a helmet called the Shigura helmet, which Zecharia Sitchin liberally, poetically translated as that which makes go far into the universe. What kind of a helmet can you put on that makes you go far into the universe? Are we talking some like ancient virtual reality system or something? She wears rainbow beads at her neck. She has ointment on her eyes. She holds a vase. She is the woman with the vase of living waters. And she wears a robe or a garment referred to as the pala garment or the miracle garment. It's the robe of the soul because she had the ability to perform miracles while she's wearing this robe. As it's known as the Melamu, it means divine, may. Elu maps onto the Akkadian word, Elu, which means pure and bright. So one way that we interpret Inanna wearing these 7 power objects, including this robe of the soul, the miracle garment, is that she is divine. She's radiating divine power. She's pure and she's bright. In other words, she's glowing. And as I pointed out previously, what is so interesting about this is that the Anunnaki maintained that this miracle garment was transferable. A human could acquire it from the Anunnaki, and they would then be henceforth known as a mighty one. They were no longer human. They had stepped beyond the human boundary, and now they became mighty men. They didn't become Anunnaki, but they became mighty men, and they exemplified the same awe-inspiring sheen, this brightness, this luminosity, the spiritual force that the Anunnaki demonstrated when they wore this Melamu miracle garment or garment of light. So as I'm tracking this, I'm realizing that, wait a minute, what we're really talking about here with Ishtar or Mari and her Melamu garment may be exactly the same as the garment of glory that is known to have been studied by the Essenes and in fact worn by the Melchizedek priests in the ancient world, and also by Jesus himself as a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. In William Holman Hunt's magnificent painting, The Light of the World, which is in St. Paul's Cathedral in London, full-size painting, it's magnificent. We see Jesus as the priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, wearing crown of glory that the Anunnaki wore, the helmet of salvation, the Shigura helmet, and he's also wearing the robe of unending light. Not only that, but Jesus is also, as the Melchizedek priest, wearing the breastplate of righteousness worn by these priest kings. What it tells us is that Jesus is modeling something. He is wearing what the ancients called the armor of God in the book of Ephesians, but he's also modeling or mirroring humanity's original state as beings of light, according to Jewish tradition, in the Garden of Eden. This crown of glory, this robe of unending light, the breastplate of righteousness signify perhaps not external objects like the May objects or a technology, but perhaps the activation of latent capabilities within us. The message is clear that all humans have the ability to ignite this crown, to wear this breastplate of righteousness, and ultimately to wear the robe of glory. And I've long believed that especially the breastplate of righteousness is symbolic of something that emerges from within us. The reason why I believe that is because the Apostle Paul wrote about this when he was imprisoned in Rome in 62 AD. He wrote to the people of Ephesus and Turkey, one of the earliest Christian communities, and told them that essentially that there is a cosmic battle that's going on. There are beings called archons. They want the human soul. They want our soul. And the way to evade these archons, Paul said, was to put on the full armor of God, the crown of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth, the sandals of peace, and the robe of glory. He couldn't be more specific in identifying the Melamu of the Anunnaki or the crown of glory and breastplate of righteousness of the Melchizedeks, along with the robe of unending light. And so it suggested to me that Paul couldn't be telling, say, 1,000 people in Ephesus, the first Christian community, to hike it down to Nordstrom and get the latest Gucci robe or Chanel belt or the latest Tiffany breastplate of righteousness, because this breastplate of righteousness was said to have been made of gold with precious gems, and it couldn't probably be easily duplicated. The way I read this is that I think Paul is telling people to activate their crown chakra, to open up their consciousness, to open their heart, speak truth, walk in peace, manifest this robe of light. And as a consequence, we would be undetectable. We would be beyond the frequency range of the fear-based archons. That's the promise and the premise here, or one of the promises and premises of studying and following this robe of light into the Gnostic tradition. One thing that fascinated me is the description of the Israelite high priest when they would emerge from the Holy of Holies of Solomon's temple wearing this crown, this robe, this breastplate, and they were said to have stepped out onto the portico of Solomon's temple. And when the light hit them, they radiated light. Now, think about this for a second. If you're wearing a rainbow-colored jewel on your breastplate and the sun hits it, it's going to be like a prismatic effect. You're going to be emitting this rainbow-colored light. And this is exactly how, in Jewish mystical tradition, Adam and Eve are described in the Garden of Eden. Humans originally had these bodies of effervescent light, and it just signified our original divine status. It was lost when we were evicted from Eden, and the human quest is to return through the gate of Eden and reacquire this light body, our original robe of the soul. Well, as many of you know, in my work, I have mapped this rainbow body effect onto the Tibetan tradition, where they tell us that our body was designed to have its frequency accelerated until it manifests as a rainbow light body being. And from that point forward, we can journey into any of the other 12 or 13 star systems, 13 including our own, where this resurrection teaching or star walking teaching is offered. And of course, it's such an easy match onto the resurrection body of Christ. And we can see very clearly that when Jesus manifests this perfect light body, that it's in resonance with the Tibetan tradition. And I asked the question, as the Gnostics did, is the rainbow light body, this resurrection body, our original and true flesh? And can we ultimately get back to that state of being? And the answer from the mystical Christian tradition, the mystical Jewish tradition, and certainly the Tibetan rainbow light body tradition is a resounding yes. We absolutely have it within our capacity to remove the illusion that our physical body is our true self and begin to identify with our perfect self, our divine light body self. The rainbow body, the Christ body, the crossed body. There's a number of different terms for this concept. And so back to my presentation, I'm mapping this robe of the light through the centuries, the robe of the soul, this robe of light through the centuries. And I finally come up into our modern era where current era transhumanists are saying they're going to be able to activate latent capabilities within us by merging or blending our physical flesh and blood body with advanced artificially intelligent technology, bits or computer science, atoms or nanotechnology, neuroscience and genetic science are all converging on the human skin. And one way that the advocates of this transhuman technology present this merger of man and machine is with the rainbow spectrum. And it spoke to me saying that what they're really doing here is not just mirroring the ancient concept of the light body, they're actually mocking it. And if you followed my work for this past 20 years, you know that I've been very, very upset about Silicon Valley, Beijing, Washington, D.C., turning humans into machines for money, to create wealth beyond imagination. They say that it will solve all known human problems, that from poverty to homelessness will all be solved within just the next few years as this AI and transhuman technology comes online. We will be able to allow the deaf to hear, the blind will see, the lame will walk. It will be truly the miracle garment that the ancients spoke of as this garment of light. But in our era, we're recreating it through this advanced technology. And some are accepting this and others are not. And as I've explained in past presentations, I was definitely among those that did not want to see this technology manifest. I saw us standing before a gateway composed of two pillars. On the one hand, we have the organic ascension pillar, the idea that we must remain pure and organic humans in the face of this assault by these technologists, who form the second pillar, the AI ascension that some people think is a fake ascension. And in past presentations, just recently, I've explored my struggle over the years, going from 2014, when I first put forward this gateway and this choice between remaining pure and organic humans or blending ourselves, however tentatively or however effusively, with this AI technology. As I discussed in my book, The Singularity is Near, which I wrote in 2014, the choice is before us. The gate is standing before us. These two pillars have manifested. It's as if we have circled back to the very gate of Eden, and we are deciding, are we going to remain pure in organic humans, or are we going to choose a technological path of evolution? As I wrote in The Singularity is Near, again, 2014, I proposed that ascension intelligence is the antidote to artificial intelligence. We've got to understand the capabilities within our body first, then we can perhaps venture into a merger or a blending with this technology. As my journey continues, I often tell this story that what started to turn me away from the pure and organic human pillar was logic, science, and spirituality. I came to believe that there is really no logical reason why we can't contemplate utilizing AI and transhuman technology for our advancement. There's no spiritual reason. There's no a scientific reason. The reason we don't is pure emotion. We are locked onto our body. It's as if we put our human body first. In this scenario, we think of ourselves as bodies with souls instead of a soul with a body. There's a very different mindset that goes with whichever you put first there. And as I'm on my path of discussing this, it's in the same year, 2014, that I published The Singularity is Near, there was a Vatican astronomer priest who said that if aliens land at the Vatican, we'd baptize them, which is really funny. And then another astronomer priest who was involved in this conversation, researching this pretty crazy concept that the Vatican will baptize aliens if they land. And the second Vatican astronomer priest says that not only will we baptize aliens, but they might not look like us. And then he says that perhaps not only might they not look like us, but we can't place limits on God's creative freedom of the diverse life forms that are all part of creation. And as he said that, I'm thinking this is quite profound looking back. First of all, we are now living in a time where we openly discuss multiple races, extraterrestrial races, public conversation now. Mainstream conversation centers around the idea that we know there's reptilian beings. We know that there are the tall Nordic ones, the Pleiadians, there are the mantis beings, and there's the gray aliens. And one day, perhaps we're going to start talking about the perfect light humans as well, those humans who have transcended the earthly condition and have made their way into higher realms of existence. And so this astronomer priest says, we'll baptize the aliens. Another says, but they might not look like us. And then he follows on with this powerful, powerful statement. And that is, who are we to limit God's creativity? Who are we to say that God can't create multiple versions of human beings or a diversity of beings throughout the universe? I applied that logic to my anti-transhumanism and anti-AI pillar, my insistence that we can't utilize this latest technology for their personal benefit. That made no sense to me. And it put a major dent in my pure, perfect human pillar that I had constructed over the previous 20 years. And as my thinking evolves, we roll into the year 2020. Suddenly there's this massive awakening. People are now all around the world are asking, hey, what's going on with AI and transhuman technology? And are they really trying to turn us into machines? And the answer is, yes, they are. And my response is to remember the most powerful technology known to humanity, the robe of the soul. That is our answer, is to remember that we have the power within our soul that to nullify the effects of 5, 6G radiation, to nullify the effects of transhuman technology, because a base position that is held by many who oppose AI and transhuman technology is that it is more powerful than us. And the reason why they state that is because they're focused on the body. They maintain that if we lose the body to transhuman technology, we lose our humanity. They're married together in this scenario. The human being and the body are the same thing. But in the spiritual view of this, the one that I'm adopting and asking you to contemplate and walk with me, is that that's reversed of what our actual scenario is. We're not a body with a soul. We are a soul first with a body. And if we can learn to activate the latent capabilities of the soul, symbolized by this robe, it has the capacity, the power, the authority, the jurisdiction, and the strength to push back against any technological force. And that, to me, is the way forward through our transhuman artificial intelligence dilemma that we find ourselves right now. And as I pointed out in my presentation at Gaia, as well as other presentations, a second pillar that we stand before says that, and this is, of course, spread over 5,000 years of human history, the second pillar says that our body is temporary and it's meant to be transformed. We're not meant for the human body to remain exactly the way it is. In other words, we're striving for something more. We're striving to become something more. That is the parallel history of humanity, the history of what happened and the history of what we can become. The ancients who left us, the ancient civilizations who left us records of what we can become, didn't leave those records for us as information. They left those records for us as directions, as instructions for us to follow. They didn't preserve these mysteries of human transformation so that we would admire those mysteries. They left them so that we would become them, that we would actually activate these latent abilities within us, even abilities that can transcend AI and transhuman technology. So the eternal Starwalker path, as I describe it, begins 2500 BC, almost 5,000 years ago with Gilgamesh. It runs through the Egyptian tradition. It runs through the biblical tradition of Adam and Eve, Elijah, John the Baptist, Jesus, the Tibetan rainbow light body tradition, the Cathars of southern France, all the way up to our modern era. People accepting that our body is an intermediate phase from the soul's perspective. We're temporarily inhabiting this realm. We came from another layer. We're temporarily exploring this milieu. We will ultimately ascend to another layer of creation. And the second pillar that I'm developing and have been developing says that, hey, the body's temporary. It's meant to be transformed. And all of human history is, from this perspective, is actually a history of our interaction with and development of technology. Going back 40,000 years, we have been creating tools and technologies that have been there to assist us in making our lives better. The microscope opens our aperture. The telescope opened our aperture, showed us the multiplicity of worlds. There's innumerable inventions that have been used ultimately to accelerate our ability to ultimately transcend and ascend from this realm. And it's only in this tiny slice of time that we live in right now that we are demonizing AI and transhuman technology, which is the ultimate manifestation of 40,000 years of human development of technology. That doesn't make a lot of sense in many respects. It's illogical. It's not scientific. We're not rejecting it out of scientific grounds. Every person that objects to AI and transhuman technology is already using one form of it, maybe without their awareness, because you have to ask yourself, where is the line? If I'm saying that my body is my humanity, and I can't allow any external force to enter into my body to alter it, to augment it, maybe even to improve it, then where do we draw the line? The Essenes, the Jewish mystics, the tribe out of which Jesus emerged, drew the line with cosmetics. How many people today that object to AI and transhuman technology wear makeup or have dyed their hair or have implants in their face? Maybe they have veneers. Maybe they have a cochlear implant. Maybe they have had another sort of implant. Maybe they're the recipient of internal technology. Where do we draw the line is the question. And this is where we're at today, because what the concern that I have is that if we recognize these two pillars are before us, we clearly have a choice. Are we going to remain pure and organic, whatever that means? Because where is the line? Is a person wearing a cochlear implant, an ear implant, a hearing aid, no longer human, but they're transhuman with that implant? Is a person who wears makeup no longer human, but a transhuman because they're wearing makeup? Where do we draw the line between what is still organic and what is not? I was deeply impacted the other day. I can't remember his name, and I apologize. He was a running back for the Tennessee Titans. He got LS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and his body is not the same as it was 2 years ago. And he acknowledges this, but he says, it's still me in there. My body has changed, but it's still me. He's practically begging his fans to say, hey, don't look at my body. That's not me. I'm still here, even though my body's changed. So where is that line of where we're going to accept what is pure and what then becomes impure? I suggest and submit in my presentations that the choice is individual. I can't tell you, no one should be able to say to you what you can and cannot do with your body that is temporary and is meant to transform. So the point here is that we stand between those two pillars. And what's fascinating to me is that it's not so much a choice between remaining organic humans or adapting to AI and transhuman technology. That's really a false binary. That's a false choice. That is not even, it's not logical. It's not scientific. It's not spiritual. It's not based on any of those things. It's a purely emotional choice that is preventing us from really seeing clearly here. And in fact, what I propose is that those two pillars are really the two possibilities of our awareness and the challenges before us. And as we stand between those two pillars, it becomes literally our initiation. That we individually, as we stand between those two pillars, are feeding off both of them. We clearly, each of us who are using this technology on a daily basis, are reaching up and grabbing some of that technology, not all of it, but we're rejecting other aspects of it. And so what's happening is that the pressure, the tension in our culture between remaining pure and organic, and I don't want to call those who use technology impure, but just for conversation's sake, let's say that is the choice. The pure and the impure are going to be in a situation where it could develop into something really quite nasty. Are you a pure human? Have you used technology? You're not welcome in my social setting. You're not welcome in my church. You're not welcome in my school or whatever. This happened in 2020 relative to the vaccination because some decided that they believed they had a moral authority to tell others what to do with their body. It's caused a tremendous amount of conflict in our culture. The drama is still unfolding. So this is why I think this visualization of the two pillars is so important. And as I was driving towards the end of my conversation on the robe of light, I realized that ultimately the answer is to remember the robe of the soul. That is what will carry us through. And I have the sense that when great artists like Leonardo da Vinci painted, for example, the baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist, that he had in the back of his mind maybe something like Vitruvian Man, the perfect man who could unite heaven and earth. He could circle the square. He could live an earthly life, but at the same time have a heavenly life as well within a human life. And so this image of the Vitruvian Man became a very important image in my presentation because it reflects this idea that we're not just standing in front of the gate any longer. We're not just standing between the possibility that we might remain organic and pure or the possibility that we might utilize this technology. We're all effectively in that gate right now. We basically have turned our bodies into the X of Vitruvian Man. We got one foot in the old world trying to defend our humanity, the human body. We're reaching up to the possibility on the one hand that there's something divine about us and this must remain inviolate. But at the same time, we're recognizing the illogic of that. We're recognizing that All human history, from Gilgamesh through Osiris, through Jesus, through the Cathars, the Tibetans, tell us we're meant to transform this body. It's meant to become something more. And perhaps we're reaching up and we are trying to strive, some of us, to acclimate to this new technology. We're not there yet, but it's coming and it's very soon. And this is the essential drama of where we're at. And so as I was concluding my presentation at Gaia, I was at that moment, as I'm standing between these two pillars, and figuratively, this image that we're seeing here represents all of us standing between those two pillars, I'm hearing the words of Jesus in my mind. He says, remember Lot's wife. Remember Lot's wife. And what does that have to do with anything here? It has everything to do, actually. Because what's happening at that moment is Jesus, as he's telling the disciples this, has just told them that there will come a future moment. This will be a moment when the Son of Man, as Jesus was called, will return to earth during an end time. And there are many that have, since 2020 especially, that believe we are manifesting that end time scenario now. And he tells the disciples that during that time, there will be trials, there will be tribulations, and also humanity will be spiritually and physically changed. And his message, his warning, and this is one of the few warnings that Jesus actually gave, is to remember Lot's wife at that moment. In other words, when we see the cloud emerging from the celestial realms, the cloud carrying the Son of Man, we are to remember Lot's wife. And this is such a powerful story. Who is Lot's wife? It comes from the Old Testament, the book of Genesis. And in this story, Lot is being visited by angels of the Lord, representatives of God, have descended, and they told the citizens of Sodom and Gomorrah, is through Abraham, that Yahweh, the Old Testament God, was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Going to level Sodom and Gomorrah. It was a place of wickedness. It was a place of corruption. It was a place where people were completely amoral. And the Old Testament God decided he's going to destroy these cities. And these angels come to Lot and his family and tell him to evacuate Sodom and Gomorrah. And they tell them, don't look back. Well, Lot's wife looks back. And she's turned to a pillar of salt. And this becomes then a metaphor for all of humanity, that at this time of great change, we can't look back. We can only look forward. And at that moment, I'm hearing Jesus's words, don't look back. And I'm realizing the message here. We're to look forward. We're to look beyond these two gates, these two pillars that we're standing before now or standing between, and to project ourselves into a time beyond our present time of conflict, a future time, a future self that has been able to transcend this conflict and this duality and this polarity. And our challenge then is to see beyond our present moment. What do we see beyond the present moment? What do I see? I see humanity connecting with all of the ascended beings that have come before us, from Gilgamesh through Osiris, Elijah, John the Baptist, Nefertari. There's hundreds, literally hundreds of examples of humans who have completed their earthly cycle and are beckoning us to join them in the ascended realms. I call them the Star Walkers. And that is my vision for us at this time, to transcend this time of polarity and bifurcation that is upon us by uniting around the image of the ascended humans, and to answer the call of those past ancient civilizations who have left us the instructions for ultimately completing our ascension. So that became the ending of my Gaia presentation. And this is where I'm picking up again now with the whole message about remember Lot's wife, because it contains another even more important message than the one that we just discussed. So let's go back to the biblical narrative in the book of Genesis, where Abraham, the progenitor, the father of the religions of the book, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, is visited by three mysterious men near the oaks of Mamre. One of these three is explicitly identified as Yahweh, the Lord of the Old Testament, who speaks directly with Abraham. The other two angels continue on to Sodom and Gomorrah and warn Lot about what is to come. So here is Rublev's painting or icon of those angels meeting with Lot. It's a very famous icon. And I've updated that through AI to try to visualize this meeting between Abraham and these three angels. And remember, one of these angels is Yahweh himself, the Old Testament God that many believe, or some believe, wrote a mystic message in our DNA. And these angels are here to tell Abraham that Sodom and Gomorrah are going to be destroyed. And when these angels got up from their meal that they shared with Abraham, when they got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord, Yahweh, said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do?" He's speaking about his premeditated forthcoming destruction of Sodom. He tells Abraham, there are no righteous men, no righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. And he has this countdown from 50,000 righteous people. Are there 50,000? Are there 5,000? Are there 50? Are there 40? Are there 20? Are there 10? Only 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. If there are, then this premeditated destruction will be forestalled. But the pre-planned destruction goes on, as we'll see momentarily. The two angels that left Abraham go to Lot and his family and tell him to leave. And in one of the most bizarre occurrences in all of the Old Testament, these angels and Lot are approached by the citizens of Sodom and Gomorrah. They come to Lot and they tell him literally, they want to have sex with these angels. And Lot's like, there's no possible way you people are having sex with these angels of the Lord. And at that moment, the angels have been cloaked in their abilities, but at that moment, they blind the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the inference is that the citizens of Sodom and Gomorrah are blinded by a light, like lightning, that emerges from these angels of the Lord. I say it's like lightning because in all of the other depictions of the angels of the Lord in the Old Testament, they're described as having bodies like lightning. They're plasma beings. But in the case of their visitation to Lot, at first they're cloaked. Then they trigger their ability to manifest this robe of light. And as the story continues, Lot and his family leave Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot's wife looks back and she turns to a pillar of salt. And this is understood to be one of the earliest depictions of non-human intelligences intervening in human affairs, trying to alter the course of humanity and telling humans how to behave at this really critical moment. Lot's wife, again, looks back. She turns into a pillar of salt. And artists throughout time have created incredible depictions of this moment. And it's a very powerful warning for humanity at this time. And from the Starwalker perspective, this episode becomes another encounter between humanity and highly luminous beings, the Starwalkers, the non-human intelligences. The characteristics of these beings stand out. They're humanoid in form. They appear as humans. They manifest as identifiable human beings. They're able to sit down and eat with Abraham and with Lot and his family. The locals think they can have sex with them. So they must be in some sort of a form where humans are attracted to them. And also they think that they can ultimately have sex with these beings. Ultimately, these angels of the Lord are with Lot to tell him that one age of humanity is over and something new will ultimately begin to manifest. And this is Jesus's message too. He's saying that when the Son of Man returns at the end of time, he will manifest in a cloud of light, which is thought of in my terms as some sort of interdimensional transportation vehicle that Jesus uses, and he encourages that all of us have the ability to manifest one of these vehicles. And he's telling us at this time when he manifests, as we see here in this Russian image, this Last Judgment image, where the cloud is descending through a multi-tiered or a layered cosmos or layered universe, that when the Son of Man manifests in this cloud, there will be great trials, there will be great tribulations, and that at that moment, we will experience a very rapid transformation of our physical and also of our spiritual being. Within Christianity, they call this rapture. And in the gospel, Jesus warns that some will be working in the field, they will be taken. Some will be sleeping, they will be taken. And the inference is that those who will be taken, or raptured is the term, are those that will be prepared for this experience. They will understand this translation from a human form into a more advanced, accelerated, ascended human form. And what Jesus is heralding here is the ultimate human transformation that will take place at that end time. And the question that we have before us today is, are we being transformed presently into that new form, this new glorious body that Jesus tells us we will inhabit at that end time? Christ literally proclaims that we will transform our lowly body to be like his glorious body. That means our physical flesh and blood body will be transfigured to match Jesus in his ascended form, to match, in other words, the Son of Man. And at the revelation of the Son of Man, the faithful are therefore expected to undergo both a spiritual and physical metamorphosis, becoming more fully conformed to the divine image of Christ, a body, a robe of the soul, where death, corruption, and separation from God are overcome forever. In Philippians, it proclaims that Christ will transform our lowly body into a glorious body. That glorious body, in my opinion, is exactly the same as the Tibetan rainbow light body tradition. And this is what is meant at the time of the second coming. When the Christos appears, when the Son of Man appears, we shall be like him. We will be transformed into bodies of glory mirroring that of Christ. As Corinthians says, we will be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. The trump will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. We will inhabit a glorified, rainbow-emitting body of light, identical to Christ in his resurrection. And this is ultimately the light body of every other spiritual tradition. And it begins with connecting with our true divine nature, our robe of light, and unleashing this power of the soul, a power that is greater than any technology, any artificial technology known to humanity. And that is the motivation for studying this concept at this time. As Corinthians says, and we all, with unveiled faces, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree to another. What that means is that this glorified body that Jesus attained in his resurrection is the same state that we are seeking to attain at this very time, if we accept that we are possibly in an end time scenario. We will be transfigured into radiant, luminous beings of light that are untouchable by modern technology in terms of a force. And once again, this is the idea of us mirroring the light body of Christ, becoming these Christ-like beings and manifesting these superhuman capabilities. So in my view, in my work, the path forward is being presented to us. And the words ringing in our ears, remember Lot's wife, are the motivation that we need at this time to remember we can't look back. We can only look forward. We can only look within. We can only, from this moment forward, begin to, in any way possible that we can, match the frequency of Christ in his light body. That we must reawaken our divine nature within us that will lead to not only our earthly protection at this time, but our manifestation ultimately of our heavenly body. We will become the perfect ones that the Tibetans speak of in the rainbow light body tradition, and we will become the perfecti that mystical Christianity speaks of as well. So here is where this ultimately lands for us. This idea is that the body of the perfect ones becomes transmaterial or semi-angelic, fulfilling the teaching in the Gospel of Luke that says, neither can they die anymore, for they are equal unto the angels and are the children of God, being the children of the resurrection. What this means is that as we move our frequency into a range closer to the perfect light body, the resurrection body, the glory body, we will be like the angels of the Lord that came to visit Lot and his wife. And the idea here is that this resurrection body that Jesus attained is not supposed to be a miracle to admire. It's presented as a revelation of humanity's capability that we can manifest at this time. And possibly there's no, again, spiritual, historical, or scientific reason that says we cannot use this technology, transhuman technology, to assist us in this transformation. The key for us, again, is to remember that we must look forward. We must remember what is within us and the capability of the robe of the soul to utilize these various technologies at this time to develop them from within, so perhaps we won't even need them, and then be able to complete our ascension. So my final message, remember who we are as beings. Stop the connection that we're a body with a soul first. Flip that into we are a soul with a body. Investigate the robe of the soul, how we manifest it, and ultimately remember Lot's wife. So thank you very much.